Okay, so today we're going to give you a tour of the kayak and show you just how we put this together. So I have my outrigger, 8 feet. Kayak is a 10-foot kayak, and we connected the outrigger with the aluminum square tubing. This is 1 inch going into 1.25 inch aluminum square tubing. When I bought this, they were telling me, or I was telling them what I wanted to use it for, and they were telling me that it wouldn't fit inside. If they tell you the same, that's not true. It'll fit. It's super snug, but that's what you want. And it's a perfect fit. And what I did here is I cut it. I got my math right first of all. I found the spine of my kayak, the center line, and I did my math to get all my numbers right to make sure that my distance was equal for the outrigger and the kayak. I wanted my center line of this kayak to be perfectly parallel with the center line of my outrigger. I did my math, I got my numbers, I found out what length I needed to cut this front piece, what length I needed to cut that back piece, and then the same for these male ends of the 1 inch square tubing. I got my math right for those. This here is just a 6-inch piece, or I'm sorry, a 6-foot piece, laying right on top of the 8-foot outrigger. So roughly about a foot of exposed outrigger on each end. And I do have it running a little bit longer in the back to compensate the weight of the motor. But that's how I want it, and it works out perfectly that way. And one thing I can say is I used galvanized. Make sure you use galvanized. Anything else is going to rust up on you. And for the gurney here, this is just an old minnow seine I had laying around. Took the minnow seine, went ahead, stretched it apart, wanted to see if it would fit, and it was actually a perfect fit. This is folded over. This is doubled up, which is good because it's got more strength. But if I, if I'm out there and I got something I want to keep safe and keep secured, I can always stick it in here and it'll hold it almost like a mesh bag. If I ever see any garbage out there and I want to take it back but I have nowhere to put it, I can always just stick it in here, hold it out of my way, no inconvenience, and I can take care of it later. But it works great as a gurney. You see in my videos, that's what I mainly use it for. So I use this as a fish gurney. And I can get these rings that slide, and by sliding them, this has a lot more dip now. And you see that with a large snook or something, or a redfish, something with some weight to it, this is going to sit down in the water. It's going to keep them alive for as long as I need them to be alive until I can release them. That allows me to measure them, maybe grab a quick picture, just appreciate the fish for a minute and safely return them all in the same time. So the kayak itself is just a 10-foot Tamarack that I got from Walmart. It's a $300 boat after tax when it's all said and done. Nothing expensive, nothing special. I do a lot of inshore, a lot of grass flats, oyster beds, a lot of docklight fishing on and off in the summer, as you've seen. And for what I do, it's perfect. And for the money, for how short it is, nice wide boat, real stable. With the outrigger, I can stand fish on this thing all day long. And it's working great. For the money I spent, can't complain. Eventually want to upgrade to something a little bit longer. May or may not make another outrigger. May try to redo the mounts on the new boat, so that one can use this outrigger. Either way, I want something that can get me out in the Gulf a little bit more later on, but for now this is working great. And for the lighting, I'll show you that for when I go out at night. Just a basic little red-green bow light, $13 at Walmart. Little stern light, about 17, 18 bucks at Walmart. And everything is just all tied together here. Inside, in this little box here, is where the electrical all comes up and through. And you can see here, my wires come up from underneath, come in, sealed with silicone. And I keep these on board, keep them lubed up, but I always keep a pair of pliers, pair of needle nose, little pair of Phillips head flathead screwdrivers, just in case I got to change a shear pin or something, do a quick repair on board. You never know. Also some cable ties. Always a good idea to have cable ties, but this is where my battery goes. Little 12-volt battery goes in here. I hook it up, and that'll run my lights all night long. Switch is there on the other side. As you can see there, it's a cheap little like $4 or $5 marine switch got at Walmart. One thing I can say about that is spray oil on all this little once in a while. Keep it all lubed up. Actually, let's put this back while we're at it. But the case that I use for this is this little $5 box from Walmart, and it works great. No complaints on that. And if it breaks, oh well, spend another $5. And here, this is where my cooler goes. This is my PVC cooler mount. I use the electrical grade conduit PVC because it's a little stronger. It holds up better with the sunlight. Any cold weather, it doesn't get brittle. It's just a little stronger. Custom cut to wrap around the cooler I have. It drops right in here, nice and secure, not going anywhere. These double as extra rod holders. Been working great. And then I got the 2 that came with it as well. So I got 4 rod holders, which is plenty for me. May add more, but working great for now. And then down here, let's talk about the motor. This is a Tohatsu 3.5 two-stroke that I have on the back here. And one thing I can say is make a tiller if you have to stretch your shoulder awkwardly to reach, because this here is great. So if I'm standing up on this thing, which I do a lot fishing the lights at night, so I can sight fish things sitting in the lights, that allows me to stand up and steer, which is great. If I ever need to remove it, it slides right off. As you can see, that's just a piece of 1-inch PVC. Slides right over, wrap a little tape for the handle, working great. My transom originally was sitting too low. You can see here, I had stacked some starboard on here to raise it about 2 inches. Initially it was sitting down here way too low. And was porpoising little, couldn't really get up on plane. Top speed was pretty lousy. Raised it, a lot better now. And if you take a look here, you can see where it's sitting. And you can see what I mean by it was sitting too low earlier. You want basically the plane of this to be about where the bottom of your kayak is. And you can see it's sitting a little bit low. When I'm running, my water is right about there. Would be better if it was more right around here, but it's working good for now. I'm getting all the speed I need. The good news is if I want to raise it anymore, which I probably will eventually, all I got to do is throw a couple more pieces of starboard on there. So the way I did this with the galvanized rods and the starboard, I can always adjust the height, and I can do it pretty easily if I want. So that's how we did our transom. 2 pieces of 2-inch aluminum square tubing running across, tied down with some turnbuckles and eyelets that I put on. And you can see here, for the main securing point, I just have these threaded rods going through, and through these drain holes in the kayak, but I took a piece of old air hose, cut it, and wrapped it around. That's protecting it from scratching up my kayak. These drain holes don't have to face any abrasion from the threaded rods because that old piece of air hose is sleeved around, giving it a little bit of protection. And underneath, we got some washers and wing nuts. You might wonder what that blue thing is. That's an old racquetball that I sliced in half. Drilled a hole in, and that's my initial washer, my barrier washer, which is protecting the kayak from any scratching underneath. So, and anything on this boat that's not galvanized or electrical, like I said, hit it with WD-40 once in a while. It's a good way to do it. These cleats here I added on, I use zinc screws. Always use zinc or galvanized. It's gonna hold up a lot better and not corrode on you. And one thing I forgot to mention for the night fishing, I made this guy. Well, I made the piece itself. It's just a light from Atwood, and I added the PVC, and I cut it the height I wanted, so when I'm stand fishing, I can reach behind me and effortlessly turn this on. And this is a nice bright light that's been working great for night fishing. I just put this guy right in here usually, and it's a nice snug fit, 1 inch PVC, an 1.25 inches, and then I got that guy up there, and I can turn him wherever I want. And if I got a fish on, I can just turn it accordingly to wherever he goes to keep it properly lit. And also, if I want to just have some light for retying a setup, I can tilt that down and it shines right on my seat right here. And that's been working great. Another thing, registration. You do need it. Here in the state of Florida, even a kayak, if it's motorized, even with the trolling motor, has to be registered. So, what you would do, I'll show you my registration. I keep it in here in my little dry box. Ziploc baggie. And if you get pulled over by FWC, believe me, on something like a motorized kayak, they'll want to see that. It's not something they see every day. But let me show you where you'll find your hull ID number. Your hull ID number is going to be right here on the rear of the kayak, at least on the 3 we have. We got 2 more over there, and all of them right here. If you buy it new, it's going to come with a certificate of origin. This will be on there. So if you have the certificate of origin, take that to the DMV. If you don't, take this to the DMV, explain your situation, what you want to do, you want to get it registered. They'll walk you through it, they'll help you out. It's like $20 for the year, can't go wrong. Definitely something you want to do. You don't want to get pulled over and have to take that motor off and be forced to paddle if you're a long way from home. And just like any other boat, you got to put your numbers on. And that allows you to be registered and waterway legal. And if you do this, they can't say anything about having a motor on there. It's not recommended for a lot of the kayaks. There might even be a note in the safety warning. Not recommended for propulsion use or whatever. But it's not illegal. And if you customize it and build it like this and put the motor on, as long as you have your safety gear, get your life jacket. I got a whistle on here somewhere. This would count as a throw cushion on a smaller boat. Paddle, collapsible paddle. Don't need flares because we're out in the day or even at night. I think the lights are all you need on this. I'm not certain, but kill switch cord. If you got a motor, you gotta have that. They'll want to see that red kill switch cord. But we have everything we need to be waterway legal here. And if you do this and you put your registration on it, there's nothing they can say. So make sure you do all that. And the outrigger. The outrigger I made. The outrigger is just stacked pieces of foam. And Pink Panther foam to be specific. I went to Home Depot. I got some, I think 2 or 3 pieces of Pink Panther foam. I stenciled out my first piece. I got my symmetrics right. And I think I did it about 6 inches wide roughly, 8 feet long. And I cut out my pieces. And initially this was just rounded in the back and then pointed in the front. This I sliced once it was all glued together. I got my angle, my curvature, and my shape and everything that I wanted in the end. Kind of looked like a big cake before I went ahead and made it. I just stacked my pieces of foam, went ahead, carved it into the right shape, then I sanded it with some 60 grit and some finer grit, like 150 or something. And then at that point, I went ahead and I primed it. Make sure you prime it, because if you don't, the fiberglass resin will eat right through the foam. So I primed it with a couple coats of Kills primer. Went ahead after that. Put my first layer of fiberglass resin on, just rolled the layer of that on. Then I started laying the fiberglass matting on. Did about 2 coats of that. Then I went ahead and sanded it. Skim coated the whole thing with Bondo. Got it looking pretty. Then I primed it and painted it, and here it is. Now it gets scratched up pretty good. especially out there fishing in the docks and stuff, or you're an oyster bar or a jetty or whatever. It can get pretty dinged up. But the good news is I still have these paints, and I'm always going to keep these paints, so if I ever need to touch it up, which I'm about ready to do here, I can. So that is the gist of that. That is how I made my motorized kayak. That is the information you'll need on how to make your motorized kayak waterway legal. And make sure you have all your safety equipment. And like I said, you do things right, there's nothing they can say about it. So go ahead, if you're thinking the same thing, give it a shot. Make your own little motorized kayak, and if you have any questions, feel free to ask.